it's Pastor Vicky here again with Pastor John for another Discover Verb this Monday morning. All right, so we talked yesterday about one of my favorite stories in the Bible and also one of my favorite VeggieTale videos, Daniel and the Lions.
That's right, yes.
That's scary.
It is.
I don't know if I could have gone into a lion's den.
I would prefer not to be.
Who was hungry.
Yes.
I don't even want to go into the ocean with sharks.
Fair enough.
So, all right. So, what can we learn from Daniel to help us through this week?
Sure. Well, one of the things I think that's interesting with Daniel and really everyone we've been looking at this whole month long, looking at ordinary people serving an extraordinary God is, I think there's a common thread between them, and that was that they all trusted in God. They all trusted in God. And when we think about how we can trust in God in our lives, there's a word that often gets equated with trust, and that's confidence. Mm-hmm. It's easier to trust when you're confident about something or confident in something. So they were obviously confident in God. They were confident with their faith, but I see a different word that's really sticking out to me lately, and that's contentment. They were both, Daniel, and then even last week, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego.
Or Rack, Shack, and Benny.
Yeah. One of the things that struck me is how they said, I believe, there's that trust and that confidence that God will deliver me, but if God doesn't, I still stand firm in my faith and in my beliefs. And I really respect that. So I think, for us, sometimes that confidence is important, yes, but what's our contentment level with what we're facing in life, with what God's doing in our life? Are we impatient? Are we maybe too eager for our own timeline? So I've been trying to wrestle with that thought a little bit.
Well, and it's also in these stories with Rack, Shack, and Benny, VeggieTales child.
That's right.
And Daniel is what we're seeing, what Pastor Carl taught us in the beginning of the series, where we have to trust God and step out of our comfort zones and take that step of faith.
Yeah.
But also to know when to step back and let God be God.
Absolutely.
And I think that's what all four of these men were doing, is they stepped out of their comfort zones in the fiery furnace or the lion's den.
Yep.
But then they also stepped back and let God save them, however God was going to save them.
And take Daniel, for example. There's something I'd like to think of. Like, if he didn't step out of his comfort zone, if he didn't even step back and let God, if he didn't have that confidence or that contentment, this story would be very different, right? What if he would have just kept his windows closed?
Like, and no one saw him pray.
Yeah, I'm not saying he shouldn't pray, but what if he would have just kept his windows closed? Well, we would have had a different story on our hands and a different message. And here's the thing, it's a thread throughout the biblical narrative. Yeah. God, when he looked at the sin of mankind, didn't keep his windows closed. Jesus, when he was on the earth, did not choose to keep his windows closed by not getting arrested, by not being beaten, by not going to the cross for us. So we see this thread of God's love for us, and that love is what I believe Daniel was so confident in and was willing to endure what he endured for.
So how can we step out in confidence and trust God in our world today?
It's a great question. I think it's hard to say, do this, do this, do this. But for me, it's, when you are in a moment, and we all have moments throughout our weeks where we're under pressure, where we might be fearful about something or someone in our lives. We all have moments every day where anxiety can loom strong. And for me, it's maybe catching ourselves in the midst of those moments and thinking about that confidence and that contentment of our faith and our trust in the Lord. Are we closing our windows and kind of forgetting that God's presence is there with us, that God's love is still shining on us, or are we opening those windows? In other words, embracing all that God has for us, and most importantly, the promise of him never forsaking us and being with us.
Yeah, and I think we all have a story in our own lives and faith journeys of times where we didn't know how God was going to take care of something. And we reached out and said, God, help. I don't know what to do next. I don't know where the next paycheck is coming from or the next meal or whatever. And we cry out and we allow God to answer it, and God answers it in different ways.
Absolutely.
We can't just say, do it this way, God.
Absolutely.
We have to see how God answers it.
Yeah, well said.
So, well, thank you so much for joining us once again. And you have a great week. And anytime today or this week that you have anxiety or fearful, just cry out to God and say, God, help me. Take this away. And we are always here for you. So you can email me for prayers or any questions, and we hope that you have a great week. God bless, and we'll see you on Wednesday.
That's good. That was good.